I'm Wolly. I'm the digital editor for Smithsonian.com, the website for Smithsonian Magazine. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our document deep dive series. And for those of you who don't know, Smithsonian.com, we are the media arm of Smithsonian Enterprises, which is the for-profit arm of the Smithsonian Institution. Our editorial mission, we sort of look at ourselves as how we take the Smithsonian mission itself to increase the diffusion of knowledge and really put a really broad spectrum on that. How can we take what museums do, talking about history and science and space and art, and really open that up to putting what we say, putting a Smithsonian lens on the world. Another catchphrase we're often use when we're talking with advertisers or other organizations, we say people who come to the site want to make themselves more interesting. Our reach right now is about 4 million monthly unique visitors, and our goal in the next year is to sort of really get more towards the 6-7 million per month, and we're well on our way to that. So to talk a little bit about what makes Document Deep Dive great, it has a much higher engagement on our site. It's 30 to 40% more time on site than our regular articles, and that's currently at about 3 to 4 minutes per visit. They're popular on social media, they're popular for search, and they're also really popular among school groups. And we've worked with various teacher groups as well to think about how can we use our Document Deep Dive series for the classroom. I'm going to get to a few examples, the cart before the horse a little bit here. But we've been using these two different software. One is called Document Cloud, which is a series created for news organizations. I first saw it used back in 2012 when the Washington Post used it to annotate Mitt Romney's tax returns, but it's really a great tool for the MCN to use to annotate historical documents. ThingLink is another tool that allows us to take images and put touch cursor marks on it so that we can identify exciting or interesting things in images. And so we sort of have and then we are allowed to use those and embed them on Smithsonian.com, where we have great search integration, good SEO, infrastructure. And we have a 3-step process. We look to identify the archival photograph, locate the appropriate scholar, the curator, the archivist, interview and report it, and write it up from one of our reporters or editors for public consumption. So what makes a good document? I've sort of thought a lot about this as to what is it that makes museums really distinct in the media landscape online. And a lot of it gets to this authenticity idea that we all know why people love coming to museums, why they still appreciate museums, is that they have the real things. They have these actual objects. And that's the same idea behind Document Deep Dive, is that it is it's a version of this real thing that then needs a little bit explained. But we also see online there are a lot of people who are capitalizing on these ideas, but not really using it in the most altruistic fashion. You have on Twitter the often erroneous history and pics account, the more often erroneous Google Facts account, things that take this idea of what museums really rely on, this trust and reliability, but really subvert it. You also have someone who's actually quite good. The website Letters of Note also has a site called Lists of Note, in which he'll go to Sean Usher, the curator of those sites, will go and pull from archives interesting letters, but they don't really offer much context. They don't really offer much analysis. And there's a really great analysis written by Rebecca Onion, who runs the Slate's The Vault blog, who says that what Letters of Note does is a chronically curated document. All the zap of historical recognition, but none of the work. And I think what we try to do at Smithsonian.com is really put in that work and to offer a much more rewarding experience for our readers. We're asking is what do our readers care about today, and how do we connect with them with these documents? And so when we're looking to pick a document, we think what's the medium that we're on? We're on the web, attention span is short. How are we going to, really grab people's attention? So short documents, 1 to 4 pages in length. What are they looking for? Is it something that's in the news right now? Is it holiday related? Is it about Halloween? Is it about Thanksgiving? We have one going up on Monday. That's a map that John Smith drew in 1616, where he actually coined the term New England, which I had never known before, and it's actually pretty cool. But it was of Jamestown fame. John Smith, after leaving Jamestown, sailed up and down New England coast, coining the term New England. Then there are the quirky angles, the side stories, and looking at the Today I Learned, which on Reddit is a very popular subreddit. We get a lot of our traffic to document deep dives through the Today I Learned subreddit, and it's great. Then we look to identify documents that need a guide, that need someone to sort of talk with. It's a visually compelling item. It's not just a letter that someone can read and get it immediately. They sort of need that curator, that expert to help them through it. And then we act as that guide. So I'm going to go through a few examples of what does really well. Maps. Maps are awesome. The John Smith one hopefully will do pretty well. We'll be launching next week. And this is a map of pegged to the 150th anniversary of the Confederate attempt to attack Washington. And so as you can see here, there are all sorts of intricate annotations and drawings. And someone coming across this just on a Google image search or Wikipedia won't really know what's going on. They need some help with this. Famous photographs. I love these kind of Where's Waldo-like photographs in which there are all these characters in here, and you need, we could write a long caption and say, from left to right, here's all these people are. But ThingLink software gives us an opportunity to really use these annotations in this sense. Government forms generally are really great for this kind of thing too, because they ask things, and there are tidbits here that are really interesting to our audience. This year is Richard Nixon's application to join the FBI. Another great one was a copy of the first SAT, in which, among other things, it asks students to invent their own language and then write an essay in that language, which I don't know how anyone could expect you to do that, but there you go. What's next for us? In 2015, a number of anniversaries that we're looking at. 50th anniversary of Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act and all the variety of all the events that led up to those. We're still continuing the 100th anniversary of World War I, the Lincoln assassination, and then maybe people will stop caring about Lincoln and the Civil War, but yeah. And then we look at who are the famous figures that get memed, that people on the internet just love. Nikola Tesla, Teddy Roosevelt, Ada Lovelace. Who are these people who, catch on virally on Twitter through a variety of means, but how can we deepen that understanding of who these people are? And then there's some new types of documents we'd like to do more with. Patents, advertisements, and blueprints. And so with this theme of the conference so far of start small, think big, we want to find partners in this community, people who have these awesome documents. There's only so much that we could do in sort of searching around, but you all know what's in your collection, or maybe you know someone who knows the collection really well and might have something that might do really well for this. And our next goal is really we want to build our own native version of this, of Document Cloud, of ThingLink, in which we can then share it with the community, and then to then just make sure that these things aren't going out into the ether without any without much traffic going on, and then without much traffic going to them, working with our editors and giving them that broader audience. And so, I'm here in part to sort of call for documents. We want, as I said earlier, this is a chance for you all to share the documents that you have, the photos, the objects that haven't been seen, that are really, really cool. we want to highlight your curatorial experience within the museum. This also offers a great opportunity if you have a new exhibition coming out, a new program that you want to get attention to. Reach out to me, reach out to our editors, and this is a really good way to have more than just the article in your local paper about the exhibit, but to really offer something that will last a long time and can have some long tail search and social impact. And also, and again, just to sort of join that conversation online, what are people talking about? How can we connect with them? And that's our biggest goal with the Document Type series. So the appetite's there for this kind of stuff. We've seen it with so many different ways on social media and the internet overall. So I'm looking forward to helping satisfy that appetite. Thank you.
So I'm Brinker Ferguson, and I'm the digital media manager at PSC. And I'm also a graduate student. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit more about my work. So I first came across mesh networks at UC Santa Cruz last spring when there were several student protests on campus, and many friends were arrested and detained by the police. A colleague and I started to talk about developing a way to check in to make sure that friends were okay, or perhaps to warn people if an area of campus was unsafe or shut down. And this also happened to coincide with the biannual hackathon. And my colleague demoed this mesh networking app built off of Apple's multi-peer connectivity framework. A peer-to-peer feature that allows you to share messages with other users nearby, regardless of whether you have internet or cellular connection, which can sometimes be problematic on campus depending on where you are in the network. Basically, a mesh network is a decentralized network in which each node, in this case a mobile phone, talks directly with other nodes and doesn't require the assistance of internet, but instead uses Bluetooth or built-in Wi-Fi. A big advantage of this type of decentralized network is that there's less likely to be a single point of failure, and this also means that one person or organization can control the network. If one node can no longer operate, for example, if my phone dies, people can still communicate with each other directly through one or more intermediate nodes. The more nodes added to a network, the more robust and further reaching it can be. So, for example, if I was at the library and wanted to get a message to students in the student union, but my built-in Wi-Fi only goes 100 feet, I would need multiple people on the network to get this information across. Often when mesh networks appear in the news, it is seen as an emergency tool during a natural disaster like the Haiti earthquake, or during a crisis like the Boston Marathon bombing. Probably the most publicized mesh network was during the Arab Spring political upheaval, when the Egyptian government attempted to shut off the internet to the nation, or most recently during the Hong Kong protests. Also to note, this type of device-to-device communication was also built into the MIT One Laptop per Child to create robust and inexpensive infrastructure for developing nations. But what I think might be missing here is not just seeing mesh networks as a backup when all else fails, but looking at the possible social impact mesh networking could have on the way that communities form and operate. On a very grassroots level, it allows people to self-organize, share resources among themselves without relying on a third-party internet service provider like Comcast. And if deployed on a large scale, after all, many of us have cell phones, it could potentially, ISPs could potentially see mesh networks as a threat to their business. And if ISPs get their way in these net neutrality wars, mesh networking could offer an alternative, more democratic way of sharing information. So then I started to think what a grassroots mesh network could be in a museum, and see if there was a way for visitors to create these ephemeral, hyper-local, ad hoc connections between each other. Over the summer, I met with Nina Simon, who's the director of the Museum of Art History, or MOB, in Santa Cruz. And I came with her with this idea off into small groups of 2 to 3 and spent the whole day in the gallery prototyping different types of community building mesh networks. This is a sample of just a few of the projects, but a few students from the History and Consciousness department wanted to share emotions in the gallery, so the idea was you would have your phone, if you felt really angry in front of a painting, your phone would glow a certain color, and people might ask you why you felt angry, and then to get enough critical mass in the gallery space, the idea is you could switch the colors of the room with different emotions. Another project with a few students from the linguistics department wanted to, or built this type of exquisite quartz slam poetry app where you would share a message or a line of text for each poem around the room, and then when it got to the 10th line, someone would recite it out loud. And then another project was people wanted to send images and you kind of bursting bubbles of information, things that influenced you or things that you are kind of thinking other things to think about. While I'm not convinced that mesh networks will take off in museums, for one thing, people have to come with a bit of knowledge of it, set it up on their phone, etc. Also, and more importantly, mesh networks are supposed to happen organically. So you can't really, as an institution, say, get on this, do this with your phone, connect with these random people, create stuff. This presentation is more about understanding what is going on outside our museum. And if we do start to see more of these types of ad hoc networks pop up, as a backlash perhaps against ISPs, to perhaps support it and foster a more bottom-up way of sharing information among visitors. And if people are interested in trying a mesh network, meet me after this presentation and we'll get on FireChat, which was used during the Hong Kong protest and also built off of Apple's multi-tier connectivity framework. And also, Apple has this really great website, or dev website with all the information, and I'll tweet out this link afterwards if anyone's interested. Thank you.
So, good morning. My name is Botman, and I'm with the Canadian Museum of Nature in Ottawa. And I'm here to talk a little bit about a prototype project we were running. And the premise was that I was going to talk about prototyping, but you'll hear that it didn't quite work like that one time. Just to give you a brief overview of what I want to talk about, I'd like to introduce you briefly to the museum. I'll talk about what a beacon is, a little bit about our project, some of the challenges that we face, the actual pilot that we're going to be running, and how that led to thinking about audience evaluation and next steps. So the Canadian Museum of Nature excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, is located in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, which is about a 3-hour drive north of Syracuse. We have over 10 million natural history specimens in our collection. We see approximately 400,000 on-site visitors annually. We have about 70,000 square feet of exhibit space in the museum. And we know from visitor surveys that over 40% of our visitors are consulting the website prior to their visit. The website itself gets about 1 million users annually, and we've seen a really tremendous growth in mobile traffic to the website. In fact, it was up 42% just in the last 2 quarters alone. So what have the museum been doing with regards to think big, start small, and create? We've been exploring this idea primarily in exhibits and programming, and we've been running a series of rapid idea generation workshops where we create stuff and put it out on the floor right away in a piloting mode and do some audience evaluation. Here you can see an example of something that we were doing in the Mammal Gallery Museum. And so the digital team and I were thinking, well, can we do something like that using iBEACONS as a technology that we wanted to try? So what exactly is a beacon? A beacon is a low-powered transmitter that can notify a smart device when it's in close proximity. It indicates the relative location or context of the physical space, and it can have a far, near, or immediate zone, ranging from about 200 feet with an accuracy of up to 10 inches. It also lets you linger, exit, or enter within a zone, and so between the two of those things, it gives you this great microlocation and context. So beacons use Bluetooth low energy technology to transmit an ID to an app, which then turns around and delivers the content based on the context. Users need a smart device with Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and an app, although there's more. The app part hopefully will go away eventually, and it can be native to the device. But for now, we're developing apps. So thinking big, what are some of the possibilities with beacons? Well, there's check-ins, wayfinding, of course, special offerings and couponings within contexts, visitor information, loyalty programs, payment options. This really, as we've been hearing a lot about the idea of adding additional content within context, thematic tours, games, and getting audience participation and feedback. So who's using them? Apple certainly is. Major League Baseball, they've done a major installation of over 28 sites. There's big retailers like Macy's and Hudson Bay in Canada, and some of the airlines are getting involved too. And there's actually an awful lot of museums that are trying it out now. The National Slate Museum and the People's Collection of Wales is here at the conference. I haven't run into them yet, but they're giving a presentation later in the conference. The Rubens House and the Palmer Museum were also some early examples. And at the conference here, we've heard the Cleveland Museum of Art, and just yesterday I was reading that the Brooklyn Museum are deploying beacons. So what was our objective? We really wanted to do a small pilot to better understand the opportunities, the challenges of deploying the technology within our space, and see what that might look like for improving visitor experience. So it was really, the idea was that it was going to be a small pilot. And we were using Eskimo beacons. So the objectives were to organize a workshop with our staff and our external developers. We wanted to deploy a really low-cost, low-fidelity proof-of-concept app with about 5 beacons within a particular gallery. But what we were really interested in was this back-end data. So how do we tune the beacons? Is the data reliable? Can we map the user journey? And we're also particularly interested in knowing about, well, if you have a smartphone with Bluetooth enabled, your phone becomes a beacon. So could we do some peer-to-peer things with the beacons? And we wanted to gain some experience in digital prototyping and testing on the floor with our audiences. So we started with a workshop. We brought in staff from across the museum, including the web team, exhibition services, education, guest services, and collections, as well as our outside developers, VDO2. And we talked about beacons, and we reviewed case studies, and we brainstormed, and we looked at it from a wide variety of contexts within the museum, and tried to identify some likely pilot projects. This was our tugboat moment. We were trying to get people across the museum to think about digital opportunities. So then we had some challenges that led to some delays in the project. The most significant of which was our senior project sponsor, who was really supportive of the project and from where the budget came, left the museum prior to the project kickoff. In addition to that, my project co-lead in our education department also left the museum at the beginning of the project. So that meant I spent quite a bit of time looking for support for the project and finding new staff to participate. And then we ran into another significant challenge, which was the first pilot that we had thought about doing somehow managed to morph into a public program activity rather than more of a technology trial in an effort to support a new revenue generating initiative at the museum. I don't know about you, but we're not a big staff, so we're often trying to repurpose and multi-purpose things that we're doing in order to support other activities at the museum. And this became quite a bit of a challenge for us. The pilot was becoming overly complex and resource dependent, and it was looking challenging for a little while. But fortunately, the new initiative, that new revenue generating initiative, was canceled before we actually built the app. So we quietly shelved that project pilot idea But it did give us a chance to think about the objectives, the original objectives of the project. And so I'm happy to report that we're now well on our way to pilot number 2, called The Evolution at Nature. And what this app will do is it's a small Tamagotchi-style app where the user will acquire a blob as they enter the gallery space. And as they move around the gallery, there will be an opportunity to evolve through 5 different kinds of characteristics: size, color, pattern, special feature. In this case, he's got ginormous eyes. And we're also trying to incentivize it by offering the opportunity to evolve if you tweet a photo, complete our user survey. And as I mentioned before, something that we're quite interested in is seeing if we can detect beacons from other phones nearby. And the result of that would be that, in which you can make a baby. So right now we're looking at having the alpha for this app next week, and we're going to be installing the beacons in the gallery in early December and running the pilot starting in early December through the holiday period. So we're quite excited that we're actually this far along. And then as a process of doing the project, we became much more interested in knowing what mobile users were actually doing in our space. As the web team, we were very focused on what was happening with the website. But we wanted to see, and we knew we needed to see, what was happening in the actual museum space. So we were inspired by the V&A visitor surveys that they did in 2012. And we thought we would do our own, and that was taking a look at what smart devices are currently being used on site, what are they being used for, because we're currently not offering services for them. So what kind of activities are they performing in the museum, what kind of apps, what kind of sharing are they doing, and are they aware of our Wi-Fi, our free Wi-Fi, and are they using it? We also wanted to talk to them a little bit about what they might like to do with mobile in the museum. And so that's undergoing translation right now. I should mention that we do everything in the museum in 2 languages, English and French. And we will have that survey out on the floor with volunteers very soon and running during the pilot. So, moving forward, this project has been particularly interesting because at various times it was not with whom we thought we would be doing it. The project team changed drastically. It's not exactly what we thought we were going to be doing because the concept for the app evolved as well. It's not when we thought we would be doing it. I was hoping to have the pilot run in the summer and be able to present you with the actual results at this conference. It's not where we thought we would be doing it because we switched galleries as a result of the app change. And even the why was questioned. Fortunately, that was the scope creep in the first pilot. So I'm really happy to say that we reined that scope creep back and are now on track with producing a pilot, I think, that will provide us with results and give us a lot more information about our audience's needs and expectations. Thank you. So I guess now there's questions for any of us. I think you want to use the mic. There's no mic. So speak loudly.
Hi. I was just wondering what your budget was for your pilot project. And a second part of the question is, if you have any, in your piloting phase, were you able to get any analytics on how many people might actually participate in your app?
That's so the number of people, that's really what we want to collect. And we'll be doing the pilot in December. So at the end of the month, hopefully we'll have some more data. But that's exactly the kind of information that we're looking to get. In terms of the budget, well, we partnered with BVO2, our web development company in Ottawa, and our budget for the whole project was $5,000. But which can sound like a lot, it also can sound like not very much. We really are relying on our partners, and they're doing a lot for us because they're equally interested in the research that we're doing. So I think we're quite lucky in that regard.
I was wondering, you mentioned at the beginning the rapid idea generation workshops. Were the people that participated in that the same types of people workshop that you had about the app?
Yeah, right. So the Rapid Idea workshops that we run at the museum often involve people from across the museum. We really want to get different perspectives in that. And so it may not have been exactly the same team, but there were definitely people from across the museum.
How did you find that participation? Like, did you find it hard to get participation? Did you find, how did you find that kind of cross-departmental collaboration on a project like this that was really like high in the sky, low budget, pilot kind of project?
So there's a certain sexiness to technology, and so I leveraged that for sure. And I also talked to the managers ahead of time to help identify who in their divisions they felt would be most willing to contribute. And that worked out pretty well. Everybody downloaded the app? Great. Thanks.
You also mentioned you have a digital team, and that sounds like you talked to competition, or is it?
No, the web team, well, so the web team works within the experience and engagement section of the museum, and that includes exhibits, guest services, the web team. We're separate from communications, and we're separate from our student IT group. So we try and look at the content direction, if you will. I don't know if that answered your question.
I was just, we have like a digital team that's cross-departmental, so we have all the different departments together because every part of the organization is touched.
Right. So I really love this tugboat analogy that's been going around the conference. And so what I see my role and my team's role is to get out and talk to various parts of the museum and encourage them to think about digital, and try and understand how digital may help them or what we can offer them. We're not big enough to really have people coming in everywhere to be on our team, so we try and get out there and engage with them, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you everyone.
Thank you.